Let's talk about sugar substitutes or alternatives to sugar. You don't need to memorize this table, but what's interesting about it is at the top of the table is something called a sweetener called neotame, which is probably the sweetest sugar substitute or alternative sweetener out there. Lactose is the least sweet. Right in the middle, we have table sugar or sucrose. First, we have nutritive sweeteners, which include honey, agave syrup, fructose, and high fructose corn syrup. Nutritive means contains calories, and that's it. Okay, so there may be some nutrients in some of these, and we'll look at them in a second, but for our purposes, the amount of nutrients found are negligible. Let's look at it right now. We'll compare some of the different nutritive sweeteners. Let's use sugar as our baseline because, it doesn't have anything in it except love. We compare it to honey, which has a little bit of calcium, iron, and potassium. Molasses, which has a lot more potassium than honey or sugar. But keep in mind, molasses is a pretty strong, I'm not even sure I'd call it sweetener, but I like it, but it's not something that I would add to my coffee. And you would need 10 tablespoons of it in order to meet the recommendation. And if the recommendation for calcium is 800 milligrams a day, let's say a glass of milk has 200 milligrams, you would need 200 tablespoons of honey in order to get what you'd get in one serving of dairy or a dairy-free beverage that's been enriched with calcium. And brown sugar. So here are some nutritive sweeteners that really, for our purposes, not so nutritional. But again, full of love. Non-nutritive sweeteners do not contain any calories or, as in the case of sugar alcohol, very few calories. Saccharin is the pink packet. It no longer requires a label because studies have shown that there is no risk consuming saccharin. Aspartame is the blue packet, sometimes called NutraSweet, and the only folks with a condition called phenylketonuria have to be careful. For them, aspartame can be toxic because people with PKU are unable to metabolize aspartame. It's made up of aspartic acid and phenylalanine, 2 amino acids, and people with PKU do not have the ability to break down phenylalanine. It builds up in their blood and it is toxic. For these folks, they do have toxins in their blood. It's something that is tested for when you're born. And if you are found to have this genetic condition, you're immediately put on a low phenylalanine formula, and you have to pay attention for the rest of your life. It is a chronic illness. Is Diet Coke harmful? If you drink more than 19 cans a day, which is about 6.7 liters, and not if you drink any less than that. If you're that reference 70 kilogram person. The FDA recommends an average daily intake of 50 milligrams per kilogram body weight. So for the reference 70 kilogram person, that's 90 cans of Diet Coke a day. The LD50, or the median lethal dose in rats, and as we know, rats are not human, but they would need about 1,000 milligrams per kilogram body weight in order for it to be harmful. So it'd be more like 1,000 cans for a person in order to have a toxic dose of aspartame. So 19 cans, not so much. However, if you are drinking that much, we should talk. Let's talk, because why are you drinking that much soda, whether it's sugar sweetened or not? As I have said, all things are poison, and there is none which is not a poison. Solely the dose differentiates a poison from a remedy. It's the dose that makes the poison. This is a picture of a sugar-free gum, and what I want you to look at is the warning from phenylketonuria, because this contains phenylalanine. It is part of the regulations required that products that contain aspartame contain this warning for people with PKU. You can look at your soda or your artificially sweetened gum, and if it contains aspartame, that's what it should have on it. Alcohol is a carbohydrate and a drug. It gives us 7 calories per gram, and as we've said before, it is non-essential. It is, however, a central nervous system depressant, and therefore it can be considered a drug. Here's the proverbial standard definition of a drink picture. It is literally cocktail chatter. This is not something I will ever ask you. And with respect to that mixed drink, I always figure the amount of alcohol in it depends on the person making the drink. So to summarize for this topic, organic compounds, carbohydrates are organic. They can be categorized as simple and complex, and we also have refined products that contain added sugars. We get 4 calories per gram from carbohydrate, except for fiber, which is a beta-linked glucose molecule that does not break down in the body and therefore is non-caloric. The body prefers glucose, a carbohydrate, for energy. It's recommended to consume between 45 and 65% of your calories from carbohydrate, with less than 10% from added sugars, averaged out over time. So that doesn't include your treat days, so don't feel bad about it. It's recommended to get about 1.4 grams of fiber per 100 calories. It's found in plant food, except for lactose. We have nutritive and non-nutritive sweeteners that are sweeter than sugar. And alcohol is a carbohydrate-like drug that contains 7 calories per gram. All right, see you in class.